Good evening. I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday Newsdump, brought to you by World News Trust. Very shortly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Russian oligarchs controlling what was left of the economy decided that the best way to maintain control over the country was to basically establish a faux democracy. There would be various political parties with members that actually thought they were doing something, but all the critical decisions would be made behind the scenes, regardless of the party's imaginary philosophies, by the oligarchs or their captive representatives. There would always be one staged crisis or another to serve as misdirection to keep the masses and the press's attention elsewhere. If some clever reporter got too close to figuring out the game, well, it was a simple matter to arrest them on trumped-up charges or to just kill them. Since the government, top to bottom, was wholly owned subsidiary of the oligarch's machine, total control of the court's decisions made the outcome of any trial a foregone conclusion. If constitutional issues happened to arise, then some mealy-mouthed expert or another would be trotted out to obfuscate the concerns with unintelligible jargon until everyone got bored and went home. If one company or another committed crimes too egregious to ignore, then a top official of the judiciary would explain why prosecuting them would upset the economy, and besides, they were too big to jail. He would then go back to harassing defenseless citizens until they committed suicide. The public at large would be cowed into submission by encouraging newly militarized police forces to respond to even the slightest provocation with disproportionate savagery. They could murder whomever they wanted without fear of accountability, even to the absurd point that a suspect who had already been frisked for weapons and could be murdered in the cruiser with his hands cuffed behind his back, and the arresting officers would be exonerated because officials had determined that the suspect shot himself with a concealed handgun. They could arrest elementary school children for throwing tantrums, being late for class, or just falling asleep in class. You laugh. All these outrageous events have happened. They're all a matter of public record. The thing is, they did not happen in Russia. They all happened here, and they all happened within the past year. You see, the Russian oligarchs got their idea from us. Or more accurately, from the malignant psychopaths that have hijacked our democracy to serve the malevolent agendas of our own homegrown oligarchs, people like the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, and Hugh Grant. No, not the obnoxious, self-absorbed British actor. I'm talking about the president and CEO of Monsanto. To illustrate the fact that 90% of our elected officials are also obnoxious, self-absorbed actors following a script, several Democratic senators recently voted with the Republicans to defeat an amendment to the Farm Bill proposed by Vermont's junior Senator Bernie Sanders. The amendment would have simply allowed states to decide for themselves whether or not to require labeling food products that contain GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan was one of those voting against the amendment. To justify her vote, she cited almost word for word the talking points of paid apologists for the biochemical giant. But then, come to think of it, Stabenow is a paid apologist for Monsanto. She received at least $8,000 in campaign contributions, and that's probably just the tip of the iceberg. For the record, no one in Vermont's congressional delegation has accepted any money from Monsanto. I would suggest that people of conscience contribute whatever they can to Democratic primary challengers whenever any of these treacherous liars comes up for re-election. The American people have been conned, big time, by the corporatists that run our country and by their pet politicians up to and including our president. Mr. Obama has the power to stop this psychotic juggernaut to total destruction, but he won't use it. Whether his complicity is voluntary or coerced is immaterial at this point. The bottom line is the fact that the American people are being screwed 5 ways to Sunday, and that's all the American people, not just those of us in the progressive choir. Sadly, the people most harmed are those most willing to hand the sword to the monsters that will disembowel them. The Tea Party faithful cannot or will not acknowledge that they were all in the same boat. They have been too thoroughly inculcated, as have we progressives to varying degrees, with a visceral revulsion to the very existence of the others. Divide and conquer. If any of us are to come out of this alive, maybe we'll have to abandon the fabricated divisions that separate us. The alternative is too horrific to contemplate.